When 3 to 4 Allied generals are kidnapped at the height of World War II, an elite squad of gimmicky commandos must brave the Amazon warriors of Canada and jumping vampires to get them back. Oh, and sometimes Jackie Chan will show up. We watched Fantasy Mission Force today on...
What is this? Can we crank a window?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just make sure you close it.
Sure,
Right.
Of course, yeah. That will welcome some outside noise, but also...
Whatever.
It's probably steps we should...
I mean, in our earlier episode, we were picking up ambulances and... So, like...
In here?
No,
Oh,
I mean,
no,
like
your
when
place.
we were recording on my
That
place.
was
All right, bye,
Ambulance
Joel.
Central.
Yeah, well, any port in a storm.
Any port in a storm.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what that means. I'm assuming it has to do with the distilled wine port.
It's just like when you're a sailor out at sea and, like, you need to dock. You know, you don't care where exactly.
No,
you got to get out of the stormy
We're
weather.
talking about docking now.
Oh, for God's sakes.
This is our most after dark.
Now we're speaking your language, eh?
Go.
Docking?
You don't need to know what docking is if you don't know.
No, I don't know. Sailor, nautical.
It's not. Well, maybe it is could be.
It may
Those
be
lonely
a-
nights at
It
sea.
may be a nautical term. It may have its origins
It's a naughty term. It's a.
and who's to say that isn't where the term naughty came from?
So it's something
Came from the
provocative. That's what we're alluring to.
It
right
is,
now.
yeah.
Okay, yeah, fair. Okay, that's cool.
And
Well,
hey.
the more I know.
Welcome back, however you wish to self-identify, to The Fuck Is This, where we dive through DVD bins, sort through streaming apps to find the weird, the bizarre, and the unloved. It's a show where we watch movies. Sometimes they're movies that have familiar actors and unfamiliar roles. Sometimes they're cult favorites. We started off with one idea of what kind of movies we wanted to watch on this show, and now we sort of just do...
Whatever looks weird.
Yeah, whatever we want.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever's a little strange, whatever we can wring some material out of.
You sound a little disappointed by the direction that our show is taken in.
I'm not disappointed. I'm trying a new thing. This is a new experimental episode that I didn't tell you about before we got here. We'll touch on it a little bit later. I, of course, am Kaz Lasgard, your host. Joining me always is Jameson Rafter, my co-host.
Hello again, everybody.
And we are back in Podstream Studios.
We are.
First time.
First time in months. And, it's good to be back.
It's good to be back. I felt a little compelled to say it's good to be home, even though we only recorded twice before in this studio, but I thought we were really excited about being here. And then, of course, COVID happened.
Yeah.
And then we ended up recording remotely, of course, as you've all been listening. You have all
Right.
been listening.
Yeah, you damn well better have. Even if you were to say, if it's good to be back home, the last couple of episodes we were recording at home.
In our home. That is
Like, what the hell are you talking about?
Yeah. It's good to be away then.
That's true.
It's good to be away from home.
And it's good to actually, like, see you again.
Yes.
Yeah, good to be in the same room with you.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we are in a tiny little pod, but we are taking
It's a cozy little pod.
preventative measures.
Mm-hmm.
Of course, there's sanitation going on. Isn't it great, Jameson, that the horrible virus, that's all done now? That's all, like, tied up now in a nice, neat little bowl, and everyone can go back to exactly the way things were before. It's great, right?
What?
It's great. We don't need to worry about that anymore.
Like, you mean here in BC, or are you doing a bit?
It's just nice. It's just nice to go back to the way things used to be. How many doorknobs did you lick today?
Oh, all of them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, because we gotta make up for all this lost time.
Exactly. Yeah, get back to what's normal to me and what gets me out of bed in the morning.
Yeah. Jameson, who's our guest?
We have a very special guest. She is a singer, songwriter, and the host of Keeping It Straight with Georgia, Hannah Snider.
Hi.
Hello.
Hi.
Hello. Hi, Kaz.
Hi.
Jameson.
Hello.
Nice to see you in person.
Mm-hmm.
Not hear you over the phone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, like what we were doing before was like we had, our separate interviews on your show, which that was kind of like our first, what was that, like our first guest spot on another show?
That was one of our first forays into guesting on other people's podcasts after podcasting ourselves for about a year.
Mm-hmm.
So it was nice to practice.
Yeah, I had Jameson call in, and he talked about his experience with living through COVID in Vancouver.
Mm-hmm.
And then Kaz joined me for my last podcast that, we recorded it before the world caught on fire again. And that was about the film and theater scene in Vancouver. Kaz was a very prominent representation of the Vancouver theater scene.
Oh, well, thank you.
Oh, well, you're welcome.
That's nice to hear myself described that way. I certainly don't consider myself that way, but that's also largely because I haven't really done any theater since last September. I was amping up to maybe do some theater in the early days of 2020.
Yeah.
And then world happened.
Yeah.
So it doesn't seem likely that I will get up on theater. Get up on theater?
Get up.
I don't know.
Get up, get down.
Get up on theater. I gotta get up on theater to get down on theater.
Yeah.
Not saying that I'm...
Everybody walk the dinosaur.
It may take a while before I end up back on stage. So
Fair.
thank you for referring to me as one of the prominent members of the Vancouver theater community. I don't know why everyone else doesn't see me that way.
To be fair,
I don't know why you don't see yourself that way, Kaz.
I do see myself.
Yeah,
Fuck up.
I don't know why everyone else doesn't, is what I'm saying.
honestly, you're the only person I know that does theater in Vancouver. So prominent to me, at least.
Mm-hmm.
You
All
were
I
able
know
to
are
give
people
your
who do
input.
theater in Vancouver. If you need more names, let me know. I
I
can send
have
you
no
all the
reason.
names.
He does
Honestly.
seem to know every fucking actor in Vancouver.
Okay, fair, understandable. Have no reason for them in my life, in all honesty.
So,
Unless they're my good friends, I'm like, well, that's nice.
well, that's what we do. That's who we invite on this show. We haven't gone around to inviting anyone on the show that neither of us personally
Don't know. Oh.
yet. That would be amazing. There's a couple of people that I don't personally know that I'm sort of hoping eventually I'll get up the nerve to be all like, hi, I've got this show and you're really cool. Do you want to be on the thing? But I haven't quite crossed that threshold.
Wouldn't it be great if someone reached out to us to be on the show?
Yeah.
Yeah.
A few people have. Zach Scott was our first guest on
That's-
the show.
I
He
mean,
said, hey, can I come on and be on the show?
Oh,
He's also a friend of
I mean, like a name, like someone we don't know, someone famous. That's when we.
It could happen. Anything could happen.
Don't promise something like that to me, Kaz.
I'm not promising it to you. I'm promising it to our listeners.
Ah,
So that they will keep coming back and listening to
keep
us
teasing that.
again
Yeah.
and again. So yeah, just to touch on, before we get into the movie, just to touch on what you were saying earlier, Jameson, I'm making a concentrated effort this episode to remember my voice, because the last couple of episodes, I was noticing in the editing bay that certainly by the end of the episode, I was completely running out of voice and I was getting very raspy.
Yeah.
At the end of it, and I was a little concerned about that, so
I was a little worried for you.
I watched a couple of videos on how to do a radio style voice, and so now I'm just making more of a concentrated effort because I'm a very animated person in general.
Oh, yeah.
So people who know me know that if I get on a roll talking about things that I'm excited about, then I tend to lose all sense of where the voice in my volume goes. And then I go up into my high register.
Yeah.
Which is fine. It's just not maintainable as a host of a podcast. So I'm just taking this episode to be mindful of that and to try and remember my breath and remember to speak from my diaphragm and all of that lovely technical stuff, which is something that I've never done before.
Okay, well that's very thoughtful of you and good to know. I'm gonna see if you hold to this after watching this movie, because there is a lot to get excited about in this movie.
I couldn't think of a better way to seg into talking about the movie. Jimson, what the heck movie are we watching today? I don't know anything.
Well, today we will be watching 1983's Fantasy Mission Force, which is a Hong Kong action film directed by Kevin Chu, who is a Taiwanese film director who mostly worked on comedies that none of us have ever heard of.
A lot of this is going to be people with careers that neither of us have ever heard of, because we don't really know much about this industry. I find it interesting that this is the second foreign film that we've covered. Yet again, it's one from Hong Kong, which I think is kind of interesting. We keep picking Hong Kong cinema, which is something that we still know as much about Hong Kong cinema now as we did
back
last year when we did Old Master Q.
Yeah,
which
and
was nothing. So.
we did not do much research on this. Do you have any experience with Hong Kong cinema?
I honestly don't. I mean, maybe I've seen a few Bruce Lee films, and then I think probably it wasn't until Jackie Chan rolled into Hollywood that's when I really heard about him. No, but I'm fine with foreign cinema.
Great.
Like, it's fine.
Well, what would you say is the weirdest movie that you've ever seen? We usually ask our guests shit like that.
Does the BBC interview of Prince Andrew from back in November count as
a
the
movie?
weirdest
Is it
film?
how long is the interview? Because if it's over feature length, I would call it a documentary.
Yeah, I mean, it was just it's not a film. It was actually for real.
But that's the weirdest thing that you've
Yes.
seen lately.
Yeah, I mean, I thought for a second it was just a poorly acted psychological thriller of the global elite trying to make the world sympathize with him that he did not, in fact, rape Virginia Giuffre. But it was real, right? That did happen?
I think most people tend to agree that if there's some talk about some awful shady shit that Prince Andrew was involved in, I think most people with their head on their shoulders will agree. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he did.
Yeah, that guy's a creep.
Yeah.
This will be the pin that hopefully topples the monarchy in general. I mean, there's even people within the monarchy, like Harry and Meghan, who are just washing their hands entirely of that entire system.
Yeah.
And it's kind of fascinating right now to sort of watch the beginnings of this system sort of fall to pieces. And it's one of many that's currently happening right now. So
yeah,
it's
exactly.
exciting times.
It is, and it kind of proves, too, like, he is not above the law.
Hopefully.
Yeah.
Hopefully not.
He should be investigated, and he can't run away to his mom anymore. No, okay, so if that's not a credible film, because I was watching it, I'm just like, really? This is happening? Anyways, probably the weirdest film that I saw, how long ago was it? 7, 8 years ago. It was called Rubber.
Oh, that's come up a couple of times.
You're not the first person.
No! No!
But it's a wacky
It's
premise.
a weird movie. Anyways, that's basically it. I don't know, Troll 2 was terrible. The Room, I know it's a classic.
Yeah.
That was terrible.
Terrible, but hilarious.
Yeah.
Love both those movies.
I have mentioned to Kaz, my mother used to, what would she do? Because both my parents were actors. She used to punish me by making me sit and watch made-for-TV Christmas movies, Canadian made-for-TV Christmas movies.
Like the one you were in, Kaz?
I'm fairly certain that counts as child
Probably.
abuse.
Yeah, absolutely.
We've ripped a Band-Aid off on it.
Yeah. I'll
You
just
poor
be
thing.
like casually doing my own thing. Like just, normal 17, 18-year-old. She'd be like, Hannah Rose?
You put
Hannah
on
Rose.
You put on the Hallmark
Come
Channel
here.
right now.
No.
Sit down in front of that TV and you put on Showtime.
You will watch this Bravo special. Yeah, I know.
You will get invested in the inner life of Candace Cameron Bure. Will she find a man in her hometown? Who knows? We all know.
She can't balance a career and
she
a male
find love
relationship at Christmas?
Will she find love again after a failed engagement? We don't know. Yeah, no. Anyways,
I've stay there until there's at least 3 almost kisses.
No, I've seen some, I guess you can say I've seen some weird shit, but the one that came to mind, though, was Rubber. But apparently, I'm not the only one. So, yeah, I'm clearly not as cool enough for this.
What?
I'll believe.
We're hardly cool ourselves.
It's not, you got the wrong,
you're in good company here.
You got the wrong idea. That's not what we do.
So I guess it is credible that the interview on BBC with Prince Andrew was the worst piece of cinema to come out late last year.
Fair enough.
Unless it leads to him going to jail, in which case it's the best piece of cinema.
Yeah,
There we go. Some good came out of it.
So what on earth is Fantasy Mission Force, James?
It is an not early, but it's a film starring Jackie Chan, I think a few years before he really made it big.
Really made it big worldwide, or really made it big in China and Hong Kong?
He was kind of a budding name in Hong Kong and China, as this movie was getting made. And then, a few years later, he really blew up.
Yes.
Yes.
I don't know much about this movie, but I know a little bit about the career of Jackie Chan and where he went.
Yeah.
Fascinating.
He's one of my all-time favorite actors. If we could have, an ambassador of humanity, it would be Jackie Chan. He is, the quintessential international movie star.
He does a lot. No, he may indeed fact be the most well-recognized movie star on the planet, globally recognized in the sense that no matter what region you go to, he almost has an entire genre of film to himself.
Oh, absolutely.
The term Jackie Chan film is something that's sort of universally recognized, even to, I'd wager, movies that don't even have Jackie Chan in them.
Yeah, how can you even, introduce a guy like that, He
needs no introduction.
He really doesn't. He's, a master of slapstick and martial arts and, physical comedy. He famously does all his own stunts.
And a very successful recording artist as well, has over 20 albums.
I did not know that.
Sings the theme songs to a lot of his movies.
That's insane.
A couple of different genres. Yeah, no, he's a classically trained opera singer.
No way, really?
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Well,
Jackie Chan,
what can't this guy do?
Very little.
Yeah.
Very little, it seems.
He's either hell to live with in his private life, or he is the sweetest guy that just applies.
He seems like He seems a little bit of both. He seems like an absolute sweetheart, but he's such a perfectionist with his like martial arts. That's the thing about like his Chinese movies compared to his North American movies, where the film studios over in Asia will give him all the time he needs to get the takes that he wants. Okay. And if you ever watch like the outtakes, like there's lots and lots of times where like the stunt actors will miss their marks or something and he'll get frustrated, or like he'll throw something and it doesn't, hit the guy it's meant to hit. So it's just like take after take after take until they land it. And that's why a lot of the edits in these kind of action movies are so jarring, because they don't flow too well. They're just like, that's the take that we got, and we got to match it up with the next part of the scene. Yeah. Whereas in North America, they'll do all these like camera tricks or something because they got to meet a budget and they got a schedule to maintain. So yeah, Jackie Chan, wonderful, great guy.
What I found really fascinating was that he has his own stunt team.
Yeah.
He has compiled over the years, and it's the same people that work on every movie, and he's done that on purpose, because he has a rhythm with them now. And now it's sort of a shorthand. Perhaps not now, because he doesn't really do action movies now because he's an older man. He's moved more onto drama. But
certainly in the 80s, like especially in like the Hong Kong cinema.
And what I found really fascinating is that he's so in tune with his stunt team that even in the scenes in the movie where Jackie Chan isn't doing stunts, Jackie Chan is still doing stunts. If it's a stunt scene where his character isn't in it, odds are Jackie Chan will dress up as another character in the movie and he's still doing stunts. He's just disguised as someone else because he's such a perfectionist. He wants to get those stunts right. So he says, fuck it, I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it myself because I know I can do it.
Yeah.
So the mindset, if you want it done right, just do it yourself.
Absolutely.
Pretty much.
All right, now let's get into two other notable names that are in this movie. People that we don't know, but they're pretty fucking fascinating. So there's a lady in this movie named Bridget Lin. She is a very prolific Taiwanese actress, noted as an icon of Chinese cinema. She worked on 50 films within the first 7 years of her career.
That's pretty normal for that industry.
That's fucking insane to me. Yeah. And or at least like in the era of films that she was in, it was very common for women to cross-dress as male characters in Chinese movies.
A little Shakespearean there.
Yeah. She was particularly well known for androgynous roles, a role where she played twin brother and sisters, and in Swordsman 2, where she played Dongfang Bubai, a fictional male character who castrates themselves as part of a journey to learn the martial arts skill of the Sunflower Manual.
I wonder how well that movie holds up under the magnifying glass of our PC culture.
Yeah, it's a young Jet Li movie, or it's an early Jet Li movie.
Oh.
Yeah, he was the starring role in that. At the height of her popularity, she was the most sought-after actress in the Chinese film industry, and she starred in over 100 movies before she retired in 1994.
Wow.
Yeah. So she's like who can you compare this woman to?
Well, no one, because we don't make movies the same way over here in this industry. But in Asia, in Chinese cinema, and of course in Bollywood and everything, that's the norm. Like the norm, even for Bollywood stars today, is to make at most 10 movies a year.
Yeah.
In a variety of different genres as well.
Good God.
So that's just their work ethic. They just have like a considerably, like we don't, for anything, it's like home life. What is that? This is your life here.
Yeah.
I'm sure they figured out a pattern to make it work.
I'm sure it's just...
I'm sure these people have lives outside of the film industry.
Absolutely, but it just seems like, it's a movie factory. You just gotta keep pumping them out. Whew. All right, and the next guy here, Jimmy Wang Yu. Buckle up for this guy.
All right.
So he's a Taiwanese actor and director, probably best known for the Aussie film The Man from Hong Kong, starring George Lazenby.
Oh yeah, I'm vaguely familiar with that, in the sense that I wanted to look up the biography of George Lazenby, because I was aware that he was in films other than the one James Bond that he was in, but I don't... No one can really point to the George Lazenby movie that isn't on Her Majesty's Secret Service. He was in quite a lot of them. None of them have any sort of following, though. So fascinating guy, though, George Lazenby.
Oh, well, check this guy out.
Oh, check this. Oh, he's the George Lazenby of Chinese cinema.
So he starred in 1970's The Chinese Boxer, which is credited as being the first Hong Kong martial arts film that kickstarted the unarmed combat genre, mainly kung fu. For a time, he stood unchallenged as the greatest martial arts superstar and was the highest paid martial arts film actor in Hong Kong before he was eclipsed with the entry of new actors with superior martial arts training, most notably Bruce Lee.
I figured that's where you were going with that.
He broke his contract with the film studio that made Chinese Boxer and was banned from making films in Hong Kong, and he went to Taiwan for a better career prospects where most of his future films were made. In 1976, he co-directed a movie with Lo Wei, a Hong Kong director who's kind of like a star maker. He kind of like propped up Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan, and who is said to have been linked with the Triads.
Yeah.
That movie featured Jackie Chan, who was under strict contract with Lo Wei. When Chan tried to break his contract, Lo Wei attempted to blackmail Jackie with the help of the Triads. But by using his own connections with the Triads, Jimmy Wang negotiated the dispute on Jackie's behalf. In exchange for this favor, Jackie agreed to be in this film that we're watching today.
I remember reading something about that on Jackie Chan's Wikipedia.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to. Maybe that's why people make so many movies. It's because they have secret triad debt that they need to repay.
It's a little Sinatra-y, don't you think? This guy?
I suppose. Oh, in the sense that there's ties to, like...
Alleged ties, yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, that's one reason why they probably pumped them out so much.
And this guy is, like, almost fascinating, but he's a complete monster, too, because he was involved in numerous affairs, including one with the wife of a film director who hung himself before the divorce could take place. He publicly exposed his girlfriend. He faced a murder charge, and there are, like, a lot of counts of, like, public brawls.
He publicly exposed his girlfriend in the sense that he ripped off her clothes in public, or...
Yeah.
All right, well, he sounds like a lovely individual.
Yeah.
He's one of the stars of this movie.
I mean, I'd ostracize him from an entire city, too. Like, honestly.
Yeah.
What the hell?
Be sure to point out which one he is, and then I'll spend the second half of the episode pointing out his shortcomings.
Sure.
Making comments on his general appearance.
You can't miss this guy. I'll point him out to you. Yeah. But that's Fantasy Mission Force.
All right. Yeah. Interesting little tid. Just because I mentioned the Jackie Chan Wikipedia page before this, something I didn't know about Jackie Chan that I thought was kind of fascinating. He is sort of the main catalyst to the creation of the website Rotten Tomatoes.
Really?
Whoever the creator of... I should have written down this guy's name, but whoever the creator of Rotten Tomatoes was a big fan of Jackie Chan films. And it actually started off, much like how Facebook started off rating the attractiveness of women on a college campus. Rotten Tomatoes started off as this guy just listing chronologically his reviews for Jackie Chan films. And in excitement for Jackie Chan's big break in the U.S. box office, which was 1998's Rush Hour, he decided to sort of make Rotten Tomatoes public worldwide, and from there it sort of catapulted into the Rotten Tomatoes that we know today. So it's all because of Jackie Chan.
Oh, crazy.
That we have this system of fresh or rotten.
Yeah, which is an awful way to, like...
Which is a terrible way, but it's just
aggregates,
sort of become the norm now of grading films. So. Thanks a lot, Jackie. Zhang Wang. Thank you for looking that up.
Yeah, Patrick Wiley and Stephen Wang are also the key people involved.
All right, there we go. So one of them then.
Yeah.
So he was the Andrew Garfield of that group.
Of Rotten Tomatoes.
And then I just Googled creator Rotten Tomatoes, and fun fact, on Rotten Tomatoes there's a movie called Creator from 1985.
Is it about... Oh, no, it wouldn't be about Rotten Tomatoes. 85.
For a minute. Can
you imagine if they made a movie about Rotten Tomatoes and then Rotten Tomatoes had to give it a score?
Oh, that little bias, don't you think? It'd be like when FIFA bankrolled that movie about the history of FIFA.
That's right. Or when Rolling Stone came out with their list of the 100 greatest rock songs of all time, and the number one was like a Rolling Stone. Like, well, come on.
Yeah, Jesus, you guys. Okay, so should we watch this?
Let's do that. Let's watch Fantasy Mission Force, and then when we come back, we'll tell you what happened in Fantasy Mission Force, because that's the concept of the podcast that you're listening to.
I miss you being a little bit more animated. You sound so subdued.
Well, this is just
the reality we are.
This is who I am now.
This is the new Kaz.
Except this is the new mellower Kaz. This is TFIT After Dark. Everybody.
This is NPR Kaz.
That's right.
This is CFAX 1070 Kaz.
It's so annoying to be on.
Just to be on all the time?
On a plot thread, and then you want to get your point out, and then you just find yourself running out of voice. So.
Okay.
I'm just working on this. This is where I'm.
Well, let's ease you into the Fantasy Mission Force.
That's great.
Don't talk like that. Don't.
Only I.
All right.
Only I can talk this way.
All right. Stay tuned, everybody. Don't. Just don't.
Hey everyone, it's Kaz here with the charity shoutout. Now I have a question for everyone who lives in the US or the UK or anywhere else you might be listening from. What do you think of first when you think of Canada? Now you might think of a polite, quirky country with our Mounties and our maple syrup and our moose and our beaver and all that other iconography, because that's how iconography works. It boils down a subject or a peoples into a series of stereotypes and presents a false image that becomes stuck in people's minds. What I bet you don't think of when you think of Canada are the decades and decades of abuse, psychological torture, sexual assault, and erasure that Canadians perpetrated against the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit survivors of the residential school system. Thousands of children from diverse cultures were taken from their families and forced into these residential schools in an effort to assimilate them to the dominant white culture. This was a calculated effort by the Canadian government to erase the identity of the savage native in order to make the indigenous land they colonized more to the image of the sophisticated European countries that they came from. This practice of stealing children from their families, communities, and identities, only to be met with reprogramming through cruel, abusive, spiritually destructive methods, took place from the early 1830s all the way to 1998. I'll say that again. The last residential school closed in 1998. This is a fact that is still as unbelievable as the first time I heard it. This isn't some ancient history Canada has to reckon with. This was happening during my childhood, and no one talked about it. I didn't know about this until I was an adult because I've been programmed to accept the fact that on a certain level, my whiteness grants me a sense of normalcy and complacence. Because white people didn't talk to each other about this sort of thing when I was growing up, and to be perfectly frank, they still don't talk about this sort of thing amongst each other. Which is why it's so important that we start talking about it and start doing something about it right now. The residential school system is top of the list when it comes to the shameful things Canada has contributed to the history of the world, which is what makes organizations like the Legacy of Hope Foundation so important. In their own words, the Legacy of Hope Foundation is a national, Indigenous-led organization whose goal is educating about the history of the residential schools and the direct and ongoing impacts on the estimated 80,000 survivors, their communities, and descendants. Their mission is to educate towards creating relationships of reconciliation and healing for all Canadians, and to create awareness of and access to the rich legacy and contributions of the Indigenous peoples of Canada. They develop educational materials, commemoration projects, and research initiatives to make known their history, including the history of injustice. Their resources are accessed by hundreds of thousands of Canadians and include websites, exhibitions, school curriculum, and an oral history collection of survivor testimony. This is a history that the world cannot forget, and it's one that we as Canadians have to remember and decide for ourselves how we want to reckon with. Do we want to be part of the reconciliation? Do we want to take personal steps to help benefit organizations that are in place to help survivors and the descendants of survivors with the deeply ingrained trauma that these schools created inside so many people? The Legacy of Hope Foundation is a good place to start. Visit CanadaHelps.org and search for Legacy of Hope to learn more and to make a donation today. That's CanadaHelps.org, Legacy of Hope.
And we are back. Kaz, where are we back from exactly?
Boy, we had like from like the movie or like from our own lives and everything like that. Yeah.
The life that you had post Fantasy Mission Force.
All right, yeah. Well, okay, look, Jameson, just want to say that movie was a little silly.
Just a bit, eh?
Yeah.
Just a little silly.
Kind of goofy.
For a war movie, yes, it was very silly.
I guess it was a war movie. It was a war movie that occasionally was an Amazon jungle rescue, and then right in the middle of it, it turned into a haunted house movie for a little bit.
What decade was that movie from?
Well, we know what decade the movie is from, but we just don't. We
where it took place.
The question is, yes, what decade was that movie set in? Does the internet have answers?
I want to say that it's a World War II movie because at the opening it's like it's the Allied forces of America and England and I guess Africa.
The four generals together in their war room. And then
they're talking about the Japanese have surrounded them. Like they're in Canada, but they've surrounded Canada.
That last sentence requires a lot of context to explain.
Can't get over how the general looked like Kaiser Wilhelm III, who like basically instigated World War One.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just at a loss where it's like, hey, the movie was made in '83, but it takes place in World War One and World War Two, and somehow
the Civil War because one of the American generals is named Abraham Lincoln.
Yeah. Oh my god.
I think we can assume, given that fantasy is part of this movie's title, that it doesn't really... Let's just all agree that it doesn't take place really in any one specific time or region or place. I think it just takes things that it enjoys and then just throws them all together in this movie. And also we have to remember there's the dubbing issue with this as well. Like, for example, yes, one of the generals who is kidnapped, who starts this plot, as it were, in motion, identifies himself as Abraham Lincoln, the great emancipator.
American Major General Abraham Lincoln.
I have a feeling that might have been someone in the recording booth having a little bit of fun, maybe throwing a little joke in there.
Maybe.
I don't think that character's name was actually Abraham Lincoln. We're gonna call him that.
I think we should.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised. In general, the whole movie was just someone's DMT trip, and they decided, hey, let's put this in a film setting. Let's actually make it a cinematic masterpiece.
Well, I feel like they wanted to make a war movie. They didn't know they couldn't settle on a war to make.
I think they
a grab.
Despite no matter what else, this certainly is a war movie. War happens in it. So to that respect, they did succeed.
Yeah. So essentially, what happens in this movie is three Allied generals are.
I thought it was 4.
It was 4 at the beginning, but in the end, only 3
Only
were.
3 show up because I think actors were double billing themselves. So I think it started off with 4 generals, and then we ended up with 3 generals because one of the other generals was one of the corpses at the end.
Yeah. So
now I'm lost. I thought it was all about the super force of people that we.
Well, that's
the fantasy mission.
Yeah,
force.
yeah. So like these Allied generals are kidnapped by the Japanese, and so they have to assemble this crack squad of commandos to go after them.
Lightning.
The best.
That explains it.
The best mercenaries in the mercenary business.
This is either liberally inspired by or directly rips off a lot of Suicide Squad. Because this is very much a Suicide Squad situation. So the fantasy...
Interesting point.
Or the dirty half dozen.
mission force of the title, the titular fantasy mission force, of which we will get into later, but I just want to reiterate here right at the beginning, Jackie Chan is not a member of.
He's hardly in the fucking movie at all.
I know.
He shows up periodically to like beat some guys up.
Thanks for warning us about that, by the way.
You think he's being carried. He shows up to some illegal fight. He thinks he's being carried only for us to see that he's just fucking well walking. And then he does a smoke off.
Oh man, we gotta talk a lot about that.
So it starts with a cigarette, a cigar, a big cigar, a pipe, and then Jackie Chan pulls out a motherfucking
like hashish pipe that's like a fucking mile long.
We should contextualize. So Jackie Chan, we're jumping ahead to Jackie Chan, who is the ostensible poster star of this movie, even though he's
top
a supporting character.
He's top billed. His name is spelled incorrectly, but he's fucking top billed of this movie.
With a Y.
But that might have been how they spelled it at that point.
Maybe,
in time
sure.
in his career.
Fine.
Fair.
Yeah.
I read on Wikipedia, because actors in the Chinese film industry, they have like multiple stage names. So Jackie Chan, which is not his real name.
No.
At all. But he's had multiple nom de plumes throughout his career. Jackie Chan is sort of his, I guess, westernized take on that version. He got like a nickname. The story that I remember reading was that he worked on construction for a brief period when he was starting off in his career, and there was a guy on the construction crew named Big Jack, and he kind of took Jackie Chan under his wing, and they all started calling him Little Jack, and that turned into Jackie Chan.
Jackie Chan, okay, fine.
But no, Jackie Chan shows up in this movie. Yes, it looks like he's being carried on, what are those called? The thing, like the...
Yeah, where like the Roman emperor will be carried in on or something. I don't exactly know what it's called.
Just like a chair, and 4 people are carrying it, and it looks like he's being brought in. There's some sort of bare-knuckle brawl slash street fight.
Yeah.
Potentially a street fighter situation.
Mm-hmm.
Where he's fighting a big tough guy. And it looks like he's being carried in, but then the camera pans out. And yes, indeed.
He's just walking up.
He's just walking. The chair is around him.
Right.
The chair is essentially hollow. Where his butt should go, it's essentially hollow, and he's just walking like the Flintstones.
Right.
And yes, and he has a fight with this big guy, but yes, as Santa was saying beforehand, the big guy smokes on a cigarette, Jackie grabs a bigger cigarette, the guy is all like, whoa! And he grabs a cigar, Jackie's like, I grab a bigger cigar.
The fucking reactions of these two guys.
It's genuinely, it may be the funniest non-ironic joke in the movie. All of the humor that works the best is all Jackie Chan related.
Yes.
I'd say.
Everything else is just, it's too wacky, most of the other humor in this movie. But yes.
Just to reiterate, this is a movie where Jackie Chan is not the lead actor until maybe the last 10 minutes of the movie where he becomes the star, the action hero.
The only survivor of the commando.
Spoiler alert.
Yeah, really.
Things don't work out great for the fantasy mission.
It's called a sedan, S-E-D-A-N, which is...
A sedan?
Sedan.
A sedan chair. I've definitely heard of a sedan chair.
Sedan, yeah.
There we go.
Okay.
Yeah.
Am I jumping too far ahead? I basically
jump all over the place.
Just
fine.
do it, because that's basically what this movie did. I need a fucking Advil. Like, it was so choppy and so all over the place. I mean, even the fucking ending was like, what the hell? But no, I basically, what did I tell myself that he was? What notes?
It was a movie that seemed like it was in a real hurry to get done.
Yeah.
Scenes didn't so much end as they were rudely interrupted by the next scene. Like multiple times people would be in the middle of a sentence and then all of a sudden, we're somewhere else. We're somewhere else now.
One of the first lines in the movie is one of the generals talking to the guy who was telling the guy who's assembling the mercenaries, if anything should go wrong with this mission, we'll deny any, and then it cuts to the
mission force. Yeah.
It goes straight to the title.
His line of dialogue is interrupted by the title of the movie.
Remember, anything screws up, we deny responsibility.
Yeah, the director's just like, all right, fuck it, let's.
Really funny, yeah. It's almost like a Naked Gun situation where it's like, all right, we're going to go on this mission,
and if anything goes wrong,
there's one piece of vital information that's integral to the mission that no one forget,
and
no
that
matter
is
what you do.
Don't
fantasy mission force.
Ooh la la, ooh la la. It goes to the fucking Surfer Rock theme song. That's just a delight to listen to.
The other thing, too, is like all of a sudden the spontaneous musical number that featured blackface. I can't. I'm sorry.
Yeah, there's a couple of problematic with a P elements in this movie.
Oh, God.
We might have to cancel this movie before the end of this podcast.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, there is. Okay, so how to break down this plot.
Oh,
so,
I was going to say about Jackie Chan,
Please
how
do.
I depict him. I also made one note as well that I'll just like to add where to go. I said so many random actors can't follow plot because there's always a new character. I wrote a lot of notes.
Yeah.
And then near the end I said Jackie Chan isn't even part of the force. He's just a stock or round character who randomly shows up and gets himself involved with shenanigans.
That's a good way to describe him. Outside of this plot of this band of commandos going after to rescue the generals, Jackie Chan is just off to the side having his own little Jackie Chan adventures. Like
not to be confused with the cartoon Jackie Chan Adventures.
Exactly. And he'll show up, like at one point, like you even just pointed out, where is Jackie Chan? Because it was like a good 20 minutes before, like since we've last seen him. And then he comes flipping over some bamboo and beats everybody up. There's a scene where someone is being held captive by some Amazons, and in this moment, and there's a moment where like they have like the knife to her neck, and it's this really tense scene. And then all of a sudden, Jackie Chan just shows up in the middle of this tense standoff, chasing a chicken.
Well, this movie had a really annoying way of introducing characters. So we're introduced to the fantasy mission force. Okay, so just to reiterate, because I don't know necessarily if we have broken down the plot.
No,
we haven't. I think we're like recovering.
A bunch of generals
this film's
from other countries have been kidnapped by the Japanese, who are also the Nazis. Nazi Japanese Spartans, as we later find out, who have Mad Max cars. But again, we're jumping too far ahead.
War's a crazy time.
So there's the one who, and then then there's the team leader, who we assume is going to be the team leader, who's played by the
Jimmy Wang. Yeah.
the real life awful guy.
Yeah.
Who assembles the Fantasy Mission Force.
Yeah, he's introduced by driving a Jeep with a dash-mounted gun turret, and he just takes out an entire platoon of enemy soldiers. He's their guy. After the military intelligence says, well, we can't send James Bond or Rocky or Snake Plissken.
Oh, yeah, Snake Plissken, who apparently has been dead for 3 years.
Yeah. They say, like, oh, we can't send Rocky. This is a military operation. Not, he's fictional.
The purpose of this meeting is to decide who leads the assault group. The agent 007 is now working in South Africa. The ball detective, well, he defected to the enemy. Snake King, he's been dead for 3 years. Rocky, this is a military action. He's not suitable.
And when we say that, we mean the generals are literally sitting in a room and saying, who are we going to get to lead the Fantasy Mission Force? And they go through a slideshow, and it is Roger Moore era James Bond. It is Sylvester Stallone as Rocky from the poster Rocky, and they're talking as if these characters are actual real-life heroes, which I'm going to buy entirely that they are.
It's the fantasy portion of it.
Yeah.
It's like the Lego movie where all these characters exist in the same universe.
All we're doing is envisioning better movies that we could have watched instead of...
I don't know. Don Wen seemed pretty badass and the kind of person that you want leading this. He's so much better than Snake. He's so much better than James Bond. That's what they're trying to telegraph with
He's so much better. He disappears midway through this movie and doesn't show up until the end.
So he goes to... Oh, I was just going to say, he goes to round up all the commandos, and that's how we're introduced to the rest of the commandos.
Point out, as Hannah was saying, that during this introduction where he's firing his Gatling gun at all of these other soldiers, these are the soldiers who, for some reason, are played by Chinese extras, but have horrific blackface. And when I say, like, blackface, I mean they have the big red lips. It's the full caricature. And this is as soon as that came up, I'm like, oh, am I going to have to sit through an entire movie of this? Only scene where that happens. Thank God, but it raises the question, if this is the only scene where that happens, why was it in the movie in the first place? It's such a blink and you miss it thing. But that's just one question among many about Fantasy Mission Force.
You almost didn't even have to include that, filmmakers. What the fuck is your problem?
Yeah, you might think that, yeah. So so now we are finally getting around to the introduction of the titular Fantasy Mission Force. We'll meet our first member. I do want to point out, I didn't retain any of these character names except for Ruby. So
Team Lily over here.
Lily. Thank you.
Team Lily.
Yes, I didn't even remember that name.
Team Lily.
Yeah.
Team Lily. Yes. So we're gonna have to talk about that. We're gonna have to come up with names for them in the first place. So the first character
Lily's
of the
boyfriend.
Fantasy Mission Force, we of course naturally are introduced through a big song and dance number. Again, only one in the movie.
It's so the first member we meet is this singing hobo. I assume he's a hobo or like a pirate or something, but he's in a restaurant. He has charmed everyone into joining in on this like sing-along song while he is just living his best life. He has like 12 pitchers of beer made for him. He has like 4 huge steaks. The restaurant staff love him. The other patrons of the restaurant love him. And then he robs them blind.
And the song wasn't dubbed. So it was, once again, it was very annoying. It's a thing that comes up in sort of preparation for watching this movie. I watched another Jackie Chan movie. Oh gosh, City Hunter. You ever seen that one? That's another crazy one where a bunch of just like wacky off-the-wall cartoonish shit happens. There's one very I maybe iconic is the wrong word, but there's the main set piece from the movie City Hunter is Jackie Chan is finding a bunch of people and they kick him into a video game arcade.
That one.
Yes, and then very quickly they all become the characters from Street Fighter.
Right. I haven't seen that movie, but I have seen that clip.
Yes, that's the clip that comes around. But there's a scene in that movie where right in the middle of it, and I was watching the subtitled version, right in the middle of that there's a big, long, extended 4-minute musical number, but no subtitles for the musical number, and so it was 4 minutes of me watching these people running around singing, jumping up and down on tables, and I'm like, what is the purpose of your song? What are the words you are saying? I know the translation will be off and it won't rhyme, but that's half of the fun.
Yeah.
Like when you watch like a Japanese anime intro and they play the entire song and it's like something like, like the wings of my love will fly across the ocean to find me next to you. I am full of humility. And it's like, it doesn't translate well, but it makes sense. It makes sense to Japanese speakers. So I was missing that. And this was another case where it's like, oh, great. Here's another musical number in a Jackie Chan song that I have no idea what he's talking about.
The second member that we meet of the Commando group is an escape artist named Grease Lightning, who I'm going to say has no discernible personality.
He's the most forgettable member of the team.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He shows up maybe 4 times. He shows up at the campfire, like, okay, he tries to escape that...
Because that's what he does.
Mining.
Yeah.
That mining...
That mine camp?
Mine camp that he was doing, and then...
He tries to escape Don Wen when he's...
Yeah.
Yeah, when he tracks him down, he tries to get away, but the hobo pulls a gun on him. So I guess he's not that great of an escape artist.
No.
It's not a hobo with a shotgun.
No.
So it's just a regular
not a
gun.
prominent character as my girl Lily. Hello.
Yeah, let's just talk about Lily.
God, Lily. Team Lily.
So Lily is introduced in the flat-out craziest drinking game I have ever seen.
Oh my God.
Hannah.
Hannah's about to go off.
Do you want to, as a woman, what are your thoughts on this drinking game?
First of all, do I just wait until I save this till the end of my phase? Okay, I don't know. Okay, they're not even drinking booze that's strong enough to, like, instigate such vile behavior.
Well, that's what I thought, too, but then Jameson pointed out, what they're doing is they're shotgunning full pints of beer.
No, that's true. That's going to get you, for sure.
Eventually that'll get you.
And if it's an IPA, I mean, it's going to go straight to your head.
Oh, God, can you imagine chugging IPA after IPA?
I
And
can.
Just shoot me then.
Yes,
I would rather
absolutely.
a bullet in the head.
You guys seem to be forgetting the craziest thing about this drinking game.
No, we're getting there. Okay, I'm trying to okay. So she's chugging back. She's drinking beer, IPA, whatever, and then she takes a fucking pistol and aims it to some woman who is strapped. We think strapped to this bar, and then fires off one strap of her dress.
Yeah. They shoot the clothes off a woman.
The next guy does the same thing until, this woman is half naked, and then there's a brawl that breaks out in the bar, and then she just puts her arms down, and where Cass is like, it was entirely voluntary.
Like she just went into her shift at the bar that night. It's all like, oh man, I'm on wall duty tonight. Oh man. Can't Susan cover it? Yeah, all right, fine, I'll get into the straps.
Yeah, oh god. She wasn't even strapped. She was like, oh, I'll just do it. And it's like, why is that fun? Anyways.
Well, it reminded me immediately of the scene from Raiders of the Lost Ark, where Karen Allen, we're introduced to Karen Allen's character doing the drinking game with the big tough guy. But they're taking shots of pure alcohol.
Right.
And the joke in that is that, oh, how funny, Karen Allen can handle her alcohol better than this large muscle man. Yeah. That's our introduction to that character. But it's like someone on this movie saw that, because that movie came out 2 years before this one. Presumably, I don't know when it made its way over to China, I'm not sure, but I can almost guarantee they were inspired by that, because it's almost a carbon copy. But someone saw that in Raiders and then thought to themselves,
how can we make this more dangerous? How can we make this dumber?
How can we make this...
Lily's a badass.
How can we
gotta
make this
give this woman a little
20% more demeaning to women in general?
Yeah. But it kind of counters it because Lily's a fucking badass and easily the best character in the movie.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
By far. Team Lily. Again, I'm just going to keep saying that.
Yeah, no, she really does. I mean, the movie is throwing all of this casual 80s misogynism at her the entire time, and she weathers it like an absolute badass, just like nothing. So yeah, no, if anything, this movie has introduced a forgotten action hero. You know.
Absolutely.
She even threatens her suspected lover when she gets home that night.
I mean, this whole series of events is just
pours
boggling.
herself another drink, and then next saying he has a fucking knife on her throat, and it's just their foreplay.
Okay,
and
so
this is another member of the Commando
we gotta
unit.
talk about this. So this is what annoyed the hell out of me. So this movie had a really annoying way of introducing people. With every subsequent member of the fantasy mission force is introduced, and we find out a little something about them. Near sort of like the tail end of their introduction, there will always be a character who catches them off guard and puts like a gun to their neck or like a knife to them or whatnot. Every single time a new character is introduced, you can guarantee the scene will end with someone stepping in and going like, actually, old bean, and then they turn around, they're all like, you son of a bitch.
That's always Don Wen. Like he has like some kind of prior relationship
or it's
with
one
these
of the other guys, but Don Wen is there as well.
Right.
It's someone will get the better of them. But Lily goes back to, she rides a horse.
And the
back to
horse
her
just
house.
stays there.
Yeah.
Like they
She
buy
doesn't
a
even-
horse.
It was very funny. She rides a horse back to her house.
doesn't tie it up.
No, it doesn't tie it up, and the horse just wanders away.
Walks in.
Thanks for the lift.
Lights her oil lamp, pours herself another drink because God knows those pints were enough for her. And then,
Well, that barroom brawl really sobered her up.
yeah, 100%. And then, almost gets. I'm flabbergasted.
Yeah.
And then has a knife taken to her throat by her fucking boyfriend, of whom wakes up the next morning. Can't find her in bed. Someone knocks on the door.
She's strung up by the ceiling.
Strung up by the. It's like, how did what?
Mm-hmm.
What?
Well,
And it's Don Wen again.
Yeah, like
Because like
we don't see it happen, but like we assume that it was Don Wen that strung her up just to get the attention of the boyfriend because he wants to recruit him to the Fantasy Mission Force.
right.
So Don Wen is the recruiter guy.
Yeah, he's the leader of the
Yeah,
bunch.
no, you think that I would know that, but there is so much going on in this movie that I'm just like, excuse me?
Well, yeah,
Like,
and they
all the
introduce
time.
characters so badly. Like, we don't even really know their relationship to each other until about midway through the movie. So Lily's, I guess, lover or whoever is kind of like this weaselly guy in a white suit. He has sideburns, so when he's shot from afar, he just looks like Elvis Presley.
Yeah.
So it's
And
really funny.
And in one scene, he has a guitar with them, and like he really looks like fucking Elvis.
So he's introduced in that scene. He wakes up the next morning. Lily is strung up from a rope. Don Wen has done this big elaborate thing where he's put a machine gun on a pulley system.
Yeah.
I don't know what Don Wen's end game there was. It was like, okay, I've surprised 3 of them with like a gun to surprise. Like, haha, surprise, I'm Don Wen. I really have to go above and beyond for this next one.
What's the
Like, he's going full Kevin McAllister on this one. He's got like ropes and pulleys.
Why can't he just like walk up to their door, knock
don't
on
know.
it, and
What's his
ask
end
it,
game? I
"Hey,
don't
do you
understand.
want to join the Fantasy Mission Force?" Like, no, he's got to like set up these traps for them first.
But in terms of not doing a great job of introducing who everyone is, we find out. So at the end of Jackie Chan's fight scene, which a lot happens, but maybe he gets into like his introductory fight scene. We meet that he also has like a woman is his partner, and
Because they're con artists.
they're
or
con
something.
artists, they're grifters and whatnot. So they fix this fight that they're in, and they get 10 suitcases full of money. And then as they're walking off, this militia comes, I guess, and
Cricket
so
cops.
and they bribe the cops with all their money, and then they're allowed to go away. But then we find out that the head cop was Lily's lover.
Yeah.
And Jackie Chan runs into them
I didn't even notice that. Oh my God.
Yeah, no, you're right. He
because they say that.
like you look familiar, and like, hey, you're the detective that we gave the money to. So what?
So Lily's lover is a corrupt cop.
Or a master of disguise? Because
He was a con artist as well.
I don't.
It's really hard to tell.
I don't know. Like he's got to have some skill that he brings.
The reason
to...
I bring up the Suicide Squad illusions is that all the members of the Fantasy Mission Force appear to be criminals or assassins of some sort, and that's why they're assembling. So it won't like they're the best of the best, but we don't care if they die.
Exactly, yeah. With the notable exception of the last 2 members, the weird Scotsmen who are introduced in one of the zaniest, senseless, like quick, fast montages.
And when we say that's their intro, like it's literally just like a Keystone Cops type situation where there's a whole bunch of Chinese people wearing kilts, and then there's 2 wacky guys at the end who aren't keeping up the step to the other ones.
And that Monty Python-esque introduction, like that little break of where they're all dressed up in kilts and you see the Union Jack and the Nazi flag and they're all like marching really fast. I'm just like, what
that
is
is their
happening?
literal introduction. The next scene they're with the Fantasy Mission Force.
Yeah.
Don Wen didn't come to talk to them. We don't really ever find out their names. They're like the Scott Conn and the Casey Affleck of this Ocean's 11 group. They're not really important, but they're also there.
Yeah, we need two bodies just to, like, make the other guy look
we won't
professional.
Find out anything about them, but they're also on the team.
Yeah.
We need the clowns.
They are certainly the clowns.
Yeah.
And, like, even, like, the one guy, I don't know if they're both meant to be Scotsmen. I don't know if every Asian person...
They're not meant to be Scotsmen at all. They're just in kilts.
I don't know, because I got the
They're
feeling...
in kilts wearing World War I German military hats.
Well, the one guy is, like, he's got, like, the, I don't know what you call it.
Tartan? Is that what the hat is called?
The one with the spike?
Oh, I was thinking about, like, the poofy one.
You're thinking
No, that's like a tam or something, yeah. But, yeah, the other guy just, like, ditches that so he can dress in, like, a fucking...
Yeah, he's got a
German...
A pith helmet and
a morning star.
A morning star that
which he
around.
constantly spins like it's generating his movement.
And a shield that he kept, or, like, a chest plate that he kept getting fired at, and then he would, like, lift his head while, like, bullets are supposedly flying around.
Yeah.
They're the comic relief.
They absolutely are, yeah. But my question is, and I brought this up to you, Hannah, do you think with this being like a war movie from the side of from the Allies' perspective, do you get the impression that maybe most of the Asian people in this movie were meant to be American or English?
Yes.
I didn't get that at all.
Okay, that was
just kind of like, again, I don't think this is meant to be set in reality.
This is not meant to be an accurate portrayal of war.
I think it's an imaginary made up. I'm literally shocked that a cartoon dinosaur didn't just walk in the middle of the scene. If it had, I wouldn't have blinked.
In all honesty, the film's like talking about it now. I'm like, this was a 7-year-old's idea. Like, this is,
clearly,
absolutely.
Like, this was someone came across a little poorly written transcript that their 7-year-old decided to write up because Daddy's a producer. Why can't he be one? And then he's reading this, and he's been inspired by 007 and Sylvester Stallone, and he's like, well, why don't we do this? And then, he makes this terrible, oh, God, it's just,
It's funny. Like, I almost wish because they went out of their way to introduce James Bond and Rocky and Snake Plissken, and then they're like, no, we're not going to get them. We're going to get, like, these other guys. But it's like, why didn't they get, like, a boxer?
Yeah.
Or like, a mercenary with an iPad? Why didn't they get, like, the C-grade Rocky for this? Like, if that was never on the table, why bring it up in the first place? Also...
It's one of the stunt doubles.
Also, something that I'm just realizing right now, why did they include Rocky when Rambo is
a much better choice?
That's what he does. That's his job, is to be on forces.
And Rambo, Rambo would have done.
That's fair. Holy shit, you're right.
You're right, Hannah. This clearly is either like one of the screenplay writers was like sitting next to like their 7-year-old kid, and the kid's like literally going. And then the Fantasy Mission Force goes, and they meet a group of Amazon warriors, and they're led by Tuxedo Mask from Sailor Moon. And then they go into a house, but it's full of ghosts. And then they go, and Nazis come, and Mad Max is there.
Yeah,
it's like, it is. It is the ramblings of a child that has an assortment of action figures, all colliding.
I'm just gonna go off here. And
just gonna go. All right,
yeah. Take it away.
Buckle up, gentlemen, and whoever. Listeners, you identify
however you wish to self-identify.
There, thank you. Yeah, it's weird because it's like I'm watching this and I'm going, okay, like most film industries, we had this discussion before. It's like borderline propaganda, like Hollywood, Bollywood, British television. It's run by that. That's that. Lips are sealed. Nothing more I'm going to say about that.
Lips aren't sealed at all. In fact, we're recording you.
Oh, okay.
Anything, it's the opposite of lips being sealed.
I'm not going to
send your hate mail to Hannah Snider, care of.
No, but film is most film is propaganda of some sort. You're correct. Yeah.
But what's also interesting too is when you think of that time during that period of when this film came out and how like things were starting to slowly like America was starting to leak more into China. And it was like this fascination of Western culture and British culture and the movies and how they weren't like they were being more introduced to.
They were getting westernized?
Yeah, westernized. Thank you. Yes. So that's sort of what this movie portrays as well, but it's sort of like in one big thing that is a little messy, and it's not really well portrayed.
I can see how certain elements of this movie seem to be inspired by big action blockbusters. You know, like there are very obvious scenes in this that seem to be at least inspired by other things. As I said earlier, there seems to be a little bit of Indiana Jones in it as well. I don't know if that is an accident because the movies did come out very close to one another. Yeah, we are all woefully unqualified to talk about the Chinese and Hong Kong film industries. Not something I know about. Certainly, the farther back you go, I don't know any. I don't know less and less about it. But I think that's a fair assumption.
I think we may not know like what the Chinese film industry is like, but we kind of have like an idea of what like the film industry is like. And I really do think that some studio wanted to try to chase a trend, but it just couldn't settle on what trend it wanted to catch. We'll
do all of them.
We'll do all of them, and we'll combine it into this one movie. Like, I don't know what the film industry was like in China, like when this came out, but you know what? Must not have been too great for variety. Yeah. So we're going to make this a war movie. We're going to make it a Western. We're going to make it a horror movie. We're going to make it a comedy. We're going to make it a kung fu movie. It's going to be all things to all people.
Well, what's so strange is for the majority of the movie, you watch it, and the assumption is that, this is a comedy. It's a comedy, and it's a parody of other movie genres, but first and foremost, it's a comedy. But then, as the movie goes on, it gets more and more violent, and the deaths have actual repercussions.
Some of them are,
and it leads to just a very grim ending, and you're like, wow, tone. And again, maybe that is a cultural thing. Maybe that's just something that we're not necessarily used to watching in high entertainment. Again, I don't watch a lot of Bollywood, but I know the whole deal with Bollywood is that it's a real blending of genres. So it can be a serious drama about drug addiction, but there'll still be like 5 songs in it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's just how that industry works. So it might be a little bit of culture clash.
Yeah.
But again, who's to say? So they meet some Amazons.
Are they Amazons, though? That's the question.
Well, they're warrior women.
They sure don't look like Amazons.
They are
when they
warrior
come
women.
riding through.
You hit the nail on the head, James. They are warrior women. They are Asian women in leopard print outfits with indigenous-looking feathered hair dresses. And they are led, of course, by a in a tuxedo with a single white rose.
I'm sorry. Before we get to the whole tribal thing.
Please do.
They were wearing beige-colored hoods.
Yes.
On fucking horseback and riding through and then terrorizing the special forces.
I know exactly. I clued in midway through why they're wearing those bands.
Just help me. Because all of it, and the next thing I know, there's a man in a tuxedo, and he is basically talking about how great it is to have all these women at his disposal.
So many girls with one man. If things were always like this, then it would be okay by me. I'd ask no more. Hey, though, can you take care of them all? Yeah? Do you need any help from us? Of 10 men, 9 are dirty. You have dirty language and dirty mind. Right. I'm an artist. I worship beauty. I'll destroy everything that's imperfect in my eyes. Bit by bit and slowly.
And he captures the Fantasy Mission Force, and he makes them stand just behind
stalks of what do you call those? Like they're at
find them at
fairs.
Yeah, when you go to a carnival, you put your head through like a wood thing, and then there's an outline of a body on the end. So all of the Fantasy Mission Force, except for Lily, are like sexy ladies, and she's just in a cage.
Yeah,
someone lets her out. And then they immediately chase after her.
To catch her.
And she's only saved by Jackie Chan, who was both following her to make sure nothing happened to her so he could take her money, but also genuinely trying to catch a chicken so he could eat it for dinner.
And then he fights off the squad
fights
while holding a fucking chicken.
In a great fucking fight scene. Like only Jackie Chan could do something like that.
That chicken is still okay. The chicken was taken care of.
Like, if anything, this movie, it's such an early role for him. It's a litmus test as to why he became the global superstar that he did, because he's only a supporting character in this. everything involved with Jackie Chan is the best part of the movie. When he fights, it's great. When he's doing jokes, he's the funniest person there. With the I did like, what was her name? The actress who played Lily? She was the other real
Bridget
star.
Lin.
So it occurred to me in the Jackie Chan fight why sometimes the Amazon warrior women are wearing masks. When we see them on the horseback, they're writing them down, and our first initial thing was all like, oh god, is the KKK in this now? But it's not Klan hoods, because they're not pointy, it's just like burlap sacks, like the Scarecrow or something. And when it's revealed that they're all beautiful warrior women, you're like, well, why were they wearing the bags? And then in the Jackie Chan fight, it all clicked into me. They're wearing the bags to
So we can't tell that they're men?
Yeah, to disguise the fact that when they start fighting, it's all stuntmen. It is painfully obvious that is what's going on.
Yeah. Listeners, you can't see it, but Hannah is palm, like head in palm.
Because we can't make actual women fight in a kung fu movie. That's never been done before in the 80s.
No, God, no. You all right there?
Did that just occur to you?
Again, listeners, the movie is so choppy. Like, the fact that these men were even able to follow a plot line is astounding.
We've also done this like 32 years.
Yeah,
we're
all had at this.
I'm watching this and I'm just like, what? Like, probably about 30 times.
This is my second time
during the viewing. I'm literally going, what? And then in my face palm and making a note on my phone that literally actually just says what with several question marks on my little notepad.
This is the second time I've watched this movie, so like I didn't take nearly as many notes as you guys would. But I was also like, my head like kept darting back and forth between the two of you because I wanted to see what your reaction was. And right? I'm not crazy. I did see that.
Oh my god.
So Jackie Chan ends up saving Lily from these Amazon warrior women / men wearing bags. And then they double back and they rescue the rest of the fantasy mission force. And up until this point, everything's been kind of light and airy and all like, oh, this is silly. Look at these jokers over here.
Such a zany, cartoony movie.
And then they rescue the fantasy mission force from the Amazon warrior women. There's some shooting, there's some bullets flying around and people are jumping off to the side and it's all PG violence. And then there's one scene where an Amazon warrior woman is creeping up to one of the fantasy mission force and she's surprised from behind and then out of nowhere, graphic throat slits.
Yep. Yeah.
Fucking tone.
Don't laugh at, but
a bit of a tonal issue. Yeah. We can mow down all the Nazis we want, not a drop of blood. Women in leopard print bikinis, throw that blood everywhere. Blood on the walls.
And it just splattered onto the guy's face that she was trying to sneak up on. And he turned around and then suddenly you see this blood and you're just like, wait, what?
Oh, there's a woman who's like murdered in a tent and you just see like this splatter of blood that goes up against the wall.
I was like, wow.
And that whole escape sequence ends with an explosion. One of many massive explosions. Yeah. It is so bright. It's like a miniature sun goes off.
Now, we, as we often do on this show, we watch this movie on YouTube.
Described it as atomic. It was an atomic blast.
Yeah, we watched this movie on YouTube on not a great quality. Someone obviously like ripped it off of either a VHS tape or like a dollar store DVD. So the quality's not great. I'd love to watch another version of this movie to see if this is just in the thing. This explosion is so big, it genuinely seemed to affect the camera that was shooting it. Like, it looked like a part of the camera literally melted when they tried to capture that footage.
You just know.
And this was on film, because this was in the 80s, so this was literally on film that had to go to a lab to be developed.
Yeah, I can imagine the camera guy's eyebrows were singed after something like this.
It was some top-tier nuclear shit, for sure.
And the poor fucking actors who had to get out of the way of that massive explosion just in time because it's the 80s and I'm sure like everyone was doing their own stunts. And
there might have been a few fatalities on this movie set. I mean, it was
partially snuff film.
It sounds like it was partially funded by the Triad, so I wouldn't be like they might not all be like on-set accidents. It might just be like
good way to make someone disappear.
The slow-mo running from the building before it blows up is one of the things that really got me. You just see this, it's like suddenly out of nowhere, everything slows down. It's like, okay, why is it slowing? Oh, okay. Ow, my eyes. A giant explosion.
We also forgot to mention the Amazon women's weapon of choice.
Oh, colorful toilet paper.
Yes, colorful scarves. I wrote down here the Scarf Squad.
Right.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
And they're very effective with it. They tie everybody up just by like hucking these scarves at
people. And that's a technique
That's
that I've
some good,
seen in Chinese cinema before, the whole like untangling. I think Zhang Yimou does that in a bunch of his action movies too, where the long roll of fabric comes out and ties around someone. I've seen that before.
Yeah, and it looks really cool.
It looks very cool, but it seemed like an impractical weapon for these women to be using in this, but apparently not. No, it worked. It worked very well for them.
Yeah, but in this escape sequence, Don Wen dies at one point.
Yeah, well he falls off of a truck.
Right.
A few scenes before this one, yes, Don Wen, their leader, who assembled the Fantasy Mission Force, just falls off a truck, and they don't go back for him.
And then, like,
he's out of the movie for
a considerable amount of time.
Yes, a considerable amount of time.
And then they go to a haunted house.
But they leave Lily behind.
They do leave Lily behind, yes.
Which is interesting. Oh, maybe I don't want to give it away too much. Well, like, he ends up being seduced by Lily, only for her to find out her boyfriend.
What do you mean?
No?
I mean, he does get seduced by Lily. In what respect?
No, in the haunted house when like one of them is playing mahjong with the zombies. Again, I'm probably jumping.
We're jumping ahead. There's zombies in this movie, folks.
Need to remind you folks, this is a war movie.
Coming up in 5 minutes. It's going to be in a completely different genre entirely. So let's just go right to that.
Yeah. So those types of zombies that you'll see a lot in Chinese cinema, they're called zhengxi. It's a real fictional thing. But yeah, they are the reanimated corpses and they hop.
It says a lot about the contextualized culture that I've just absorbed that over time. I saw it was the outfit that they were in. It was the fact that they hopped out of a jar and then they started hopping with their arms in front of them. I've seen that somewhere.
Yeah.
I think. Oh, I remember where I've seen that. There's a character in Marvel vs. Capcom 3.
Yeah. Who does that?
Who is from Darkstalkers, and she's a Chinese zombie. That's where I've seen that before. But yeah, as soon as... Well, they're in this spooky house hiding out.
Well, they're camping for the night, and slowly very slowly. That scene went on for a little too long.
That scene went on for there's a lot of this movie that takes place in a haunted house.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and one of the Scotsmen goes and plays mahjong with them, not realizing that they're zombies.
Well, but all of them have. That's why the scene takes so fucking long. Is because all of them
have their own spooky counter
where they go off, and then a ghost does something, and then a ghost does something noticeably scary, and then they're all like, "Haha, that's kind of weird," and then the ghost does something kind of scary but not quite as scary, and then they're like, "Nah!" and it happens 5 times in a fucking row.
I'm getting the hell out of here. Feet don't fail me now.
And then I'm totally underneath. I'm totally adding in that sound effect of the.
Yeah. It wouldn't be out of place in this movie.
And then of course Lily shows up and
saves them from
all
the ghost
of them after this extended bout of. I don't even remember how she does it. I think they just leave. Do they blow up the haunted house?
She guns down the ghosts. I think that's what happened.
And there might have been a wizard.
Yes.
There might have been a wizard. That's the tagline for this movie. Fantasy Mission Force. There might be a wizard,
or like a necromancer or something like that. Who the fuck knows, really?
Probably. But one of the ghosts disguises herself as Lily and starts seducing
the boyfriend.
One of the characters. So that's where I got confused.
And then, she turns out to be a floating head, and like the arms that she's holding that turn out to be skeleton hands.
And the mahjong game of where like the arm is underneath the table and then like he's trying to like screw around with his pieces.
Or like when his disembodied head like floats on over to look over the guy's shoulder. That was a pretty good effect, and it was used for a gag. like fucking Ghostbusters.
Yeah, that was the first moment where this ghost's head comes right off of his body, and then Wacky Scotsman number 1 just kind of goes all like, "Hey, no cheating," and then he goes back, and then something else happens. He's all like, "Wait a second. I think you guys might be ghosts. I think I'm going to overreact to this in a comical way." But it's like, his head was off of his body 2 minutes ago.
Yeah. No, he's focused on the game, His eyes on the prize.
The Monty Python tomfoolery.
It's a whole bunch of wizards.
So after they leave the haunted house, they come across the Nazi Mad Max camp where all of the Nazis... Well, they're expecting to find the generals, but most of the Nazis turn out to be dead. And Jackie Chan and his partner show up.
Right at the very end.
Right at the very
end. Hey, do you guys finally want to be a part of the Fantasy Mission Force? And they're like, oh, okay. Because they've been following them around, I guess, waiting for an opportunity to rob them.
Yeah.
But they also, because he's Jackie Chan, whenever he shows up, he's all like, hey, what's going on? Oh, there's a fight going on. Well, I guess I'll kill all these people.
We'll help you out. We have no investment in you. We have no relationship with each other, but whatever, we'll help you out. So the Mad Max Nazis come riding in.
Spartan Nazis.
Thank you. Yeah. Thank you. They come riding in on their cars, waving their flares.
I think this is the moment that more or less like reaffirmed it for me that this wasn't a period movie, because those cars that they were on were very decisively 80s cars.
Yeah, they're all fucking muscle cars. Yeah.
And it's very weird because there's like regular muscle cars, but then they just have swastika decals on them. And it's very jarring. And it's like, what is this army of Japanese Nazi Spartan apocalypse warriors in Canada?
I missed that chapter in history class.
Well, we missed a lot of chapters in history class, to be fair.
Okay, fine. Yeah, like what? This is the history that they're not teaching us in North America.
Yeah.
The Spartan Nazis that rode in on muscle cars and drove past haunted houses.
Those are the two things they don't teach us. They don't teach us about residential schools, and they don't teach us about the Nazi Spartan warriors who took over Canada for a brief period.
Wake up, sheeple.
Come on.
Should have been homeschooled.
Rewrite those books.
100%.
I got a feeling the writers of this movie were homeschooled a bit. That morning is like the final standoff between the army of Spartan Nazis and our lovable scamps in the Fantasy Mission Force. Of course, this violent confrontation is underscored by like the really upbeat.
The main theme song, as a musician, I just want to point this out. It's Camp Down Racist.
There was a moment we were watching this, and this theme plays multiple times throughout it. Yeah, there was one point where they're like near a lake and they're playing like a slightly slowed down version of it, and that was the moment where it kind of clicked to me, where it's like, oh, the doo-dah day. Wait a second, I know what this is. And there was a song that was playing in the haunted house as well. And that sounded super familiar. Did you look up what that was?
Yep.
What was it?
Halloween.
Holy shit, you're right. They they stole a little chunk from John Carpenter's Halloween
and put it in the spooky sequence of the movie.
You're so right. Wow, the gall.
I know, the nerve.
It's like two things that they stole from John Carpenter, because they stole Snake Plissken as well.
I mean, they stole a lot of things from a lot of different sources in this movie.
Just lawsuit the movie.
Well, it's okay, because most of the people involved in this movie are dead.
Like in real life?
Characters.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that was the segue. I don't know. Like,
that's quite sad.
Jackie Chan's still kicking.
The triads got them.
Yeah.
Yeah. The ones that stayed behind, yeah. Yeah, and again, they have like this standoff against all the Nazis, and again, for the most part, this has been a fairly wacky, innocuous comedy, but all of a sudden, it turns into the end of the Wild Bunch, because all of the Fantasy Mission Force die.
Yeah.
They're all blown away in violent, grim ends.
One of the lovable, goofy Scotsman guys gets
it horribly.
Yeah.
I don't even want to go into the description of what happens with
Okay,
them.
we will, though.
Yeah. Yeah, so he does something heroic. He saves one of the other members of the Fantasy Mission Force. So, hey, good job, buddy. And then he is stabbed from beneath the floorboards through the ass.
Right, there's no other way.
Right down Main
describe that.
Right down Main Street.
Right, yeah.
And he's coughing up blood or just spewing blood out of his mouth while his friend is congratulating him, and the next thing he turns him over and you see a spike on the ground. You're like, oh.
And if he had been played up, if his comedy had been played up to like a more annoying degree, like that might have played a little bit more. He's kind of a sweet guy. He's always kind of like putting his head on people's shoulders. He's the cinnamon roll of the group, and he dies the worst. It's just like, God,
he dies in the worst way.
Couldn't imagine.
Except one of his main lines at the beginning of the movie was he said, "Oh wow, a real war." It's like, what? Like,
golly.
Golly.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would also like to point out the interesting dubbing of voices for the characters. Like Jackie Chan sounds like
he was the worst.
Prepubescent child.
You're gonna be my dinner tonight. I'm putting you in the oven. I'm gonna roast you. Oh, hey, sister, I'm sorry. I didn't see anything. I'm short-sighted. I came for my chicken. Bye.
I mean, I think he's trying to be, well, he's the comic relief.
It loses a little something to be desired when he comes in to, like, save the day, save Lily from, like, people beating it up. It's all like, oh, hey, what's going on? Hey, I got my chicken here. Hey, what's going on? Oh, I got in a fight here. Oh, what's going on? Yeah. He's somewhere halfway between Squidward and Popeye.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a little,
For the most part, everyone else is kind of natural sounding, and then for Jackie Chan, they just
I don't know who they got.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
So, all of the Fantasy Mission Force are dead now, and this is also where... What the hell is the guy's name?
Don Wen. He shows back up with the generals, and
who I guess were rescued off camera?
Mm-hmm. In this moment, the one surviving member of Fantasy Mission Force, the hobo guy, he says, "Oh, Don Wen, you're alive after all," and twist. Don Wen pulls out a gun on him and shoots the hobo dead.
Okay, something I'm just remembering here. So when they initially get to, like, the Nazi base, they go in, and there's a bunch of dead Nazis on the ground, right? They're all dead.
Yeah.
But then all of these Spartan Nazis come in their cars.
Yeah.
And then Don Wen shows up with the generals in a scene that we don't see.
Yeah.
Was that like, were the Nazis dead on the floor like the actual Nazis, and the Nazis they were fighting like Don Wen's people?
I don't know.
I have no idea. I just remembered that.
His gambit was, like, maybe he did take out the Nazis at the base himself. I guess everyone knows there's also, like, money to be had in this.
Oh, but the only thing that's driving this plot is money.
Yeah.
There's no other reason for any of the characters to do anything other than the fact that they will get paid a lot of money.
Right.
And Jackie Chan's girlfriend put it perfectly at the ending when she confronted Don Wen.
Wasn't he working for you? Then why'd you shoot him? It's my plan to let them kill each other. They're my scapegoats. You can't blame me. Everyone wants money. It's only that they're not as smart as me.
Oh, I see. You use them as cannon fodder. And then you get some killers together so they'll kill each other. What a clever plan that is. So the money will be yours and no one will know about it.
Like, the group had just been gaslit the whole time. So,
Well, yeah, his
Suicide Squad. Suicide
It is. It's
Squad.
literally the plot of Suicide Squad.
His plan was, like, you're going to be cannon fodder for each other, and once both sides have eliminated each other, I'm going to swoop in and take the money and be the big hero.
Mm-hmm.
That was his plan.
Dick.
Yeah. So
yeah, I think he killed the Nazis, and then I think he paid other soldiers to pretend to be the Nazis to kill the Fantasy Mission Force, and then he came in at the end and said, "Yeah, we fought to the end, but they all died, but I was able to secure the generals, and I'm the hero. I'm the lone survivor."
Yeah.
I think that is what happened.
Yeah, but Jackie Chan survives the onslaught, and then he and Don Wen have their big fight at the end.
Yeah, and it's like, okay, so you would watch that and you would assume, okay, here's the hero of the movie fighting the villain of the movie. Jackie Chan disappears for good chunks of this movie.
So does Don Wen.
We didn't even know Don Wen was the villain until just that moment. And I'm watching this climactic battle between these two characters, and I'm just thinking back, like, remember when this movie was about, like, a haunted house for, like, 15 minutes? Yeah. All of those characters are dead now. Every character who was involved in that sequence for the majority of the movie's runtime are all dead. The final fight is between two guys who haven't been on screen for a really long time.
Yeah. And it's so funny to me because at this time, like, Jimmy Wang would have, like, he's sort of past his prime as, like, an action movie star with, like, the rise of Bruce Lee and Jackie Chan. This really was a fight between, like, the old guard and the new blood. I picked up on that, and I thought that's a pretty cool concept for this fight. But what it reeked to me was, and you brought this up, was that at some point in this movie, they realized Jackie Chan is on his way to becoming a big star. We gotta make sure the last fight scene is between these two guys.
I think they realized midway through, this guy that we've cast in a supporting role. Oh, he's going places. Okay, let's make him the hero. Even though that doesn't make any sense for this movie that we've written.
And he's just a drifter. He's just like, he's just a mischievous little drifter with his girlfriend. You know, just
pops in every once in a while to chase a chicken. And
that's Fantasy Mission Force for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, Jackie Chan wins the fight. He blows up Don Wen, takes all the corpses of the Fantasy Mission Force on a Jeep.
His female partner survives. She also survives, but she's mortally wounded as well. So she crawls into the car with him.
Yeah. And the generals say, like, hey, move these corpses over. Like,
Abraham Lincoln comes over and says, what took you guys so long?
Yeah, we need to be rescued. Get us out of here. And because Jackie Chan wasn't fucking involved in this whatsoever, says, like, you don't look like generals. You look like clowns to me. And then just drives off.
Okay, but then they drive off, and we see the Jeep going, and we see the generals running after them. And then it freezes, and then the music abruptly cuts out, and the end.
No credits, just the end.
No credits.
What's your rank and which unit are you from? Don't you know we're generals? Don't you respect senior officers? I don't know any generals. To me, you look like clowns. Hey! Come back here!
There's something so funny about cutting to a title card that says the end, and then the music just cuts abruptly in the middle of the scene. Fuck, that was funny.
It was basically telling the whole audience, curfew's over, time to go home. It's like, oh, what?
Well, that's how the fucking movie starts, you know.
That's true.
And remember, if anything goes wrong, ooh la la, ooh la la.
Oh, God, that was funny.
Yeah.
All right.
So, here's something crazy that I learned during my research on this movie. There's another movie called Fire Dragon, which came out 4 years later and is essentially this movie with scenes cut together differently. All the character introductions are replaced with a backstory montage. Most of the parts with Jackie Chan's female partner are just completely removed.
Oh.
The plot revolves more on the Nazi Spartan enemies.
And not the multitude of other secondary villains that keep popping up.
There are no Allied generals that need rescuing. The haunted house sequence is cut completely.
Yeah.
And there's
probably for a good reason. So you're saying that 2 years after this movie came out, someone else made
a few years after,
made a more coherent version of this movie. I guess my first question is how much Lily is in that version.
Oh, I hopefully a lot more.
Hopefully the same amount.
So, I'm sorry, in your notes, did it say anything about a haunted house, or was this movie basically Jackie Chan and our girl Lily rescuing people from a haunted house?
No haunted house.
No haunted house.
Haunted house.
No haunted house
Okay.
whatsoever.
Weird.
So it's both a more coherent... So you're telling me...
It's a completely different movie.
There's a better version of the movie that we just watched, and you made us watch this one?
You're damn right.
All right.
This is your punishment for showing me the telephone.
That tracks. That absolutely tracks. It's not much of a punishment. This is a far more enjoyable movie than the telephone
It
was.
very much is.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you guys wanted to bring up with this movie? Probably a lot.
I just wanted to say in the Pantheon, the one thing we always know about Jackie Chan is that he continually puts his body through so much strain and torture for the benefit of entertaining us.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a unique version of that in this movie. He's always putting his body through the ringer. This is the first time I've ever seen Jackie Chan really take one for the team and give himself a big old mouthful of sweaty man gut. Because when he's fighting that wrestler at the beginning, there's one point where the guy like falls on top
belly
of him,
flops on him.
and right on his face, and Jackie Chan has a full mouth of this man's torso inside his mouth, and it's just all like, man, you are dedicated to your craft, Jackie Chan.
Absolutely.
There's no camera tricks there. You got a full mouth of man meat there. That was the main thing that I wrote down that I wanted to talk. I think we touched on pretty much everything that I wanted to talk about.
Anything you wanted to add?
I did like the thing. Sorry, Hannah. I did also
okay.
like the thing right at the very beginning where the generals are around the table and they're like, the Japanese are here, here, and here, and then they go to like a bigger map. It's like, no, you're wrong. They're here, here, and here.
According to our intelligence reports, the Japanese are here, 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 and here. And they're completely surrounded by our forces. No, you are wrong. According to our British intelligence reports, the Japanese are here, 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 and here. And both sides are of equal strength. Oh, that's ridiculous. According to our French intelligence report, all this area, there are no Japanese left at all. Not true. You're not true. You are idiot. Oh, you're wrong. Wrong. We're surrounded.
And it's like, who wrote that?
No. Okay, with
It's
that
great.
part, they're talking about where the Japanese are, and then they're like, no, they're actually here, and then you turn around and there's
that's right.
Japanese
And then they're
generals
right there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
you're all wrong. The Japanese are here.
Yeah. Yeah.
A lot of good,
Yeah.
stupid jokes like that.
Dear Lord.
Well, I guess
was there anything you mentioned that we didn't
Well,
touch
let's
on?
see. I touched base on my propaganda theory about it, which I'm going to do.
Cool.
How it's possibly written by a 7-year-old.
Or 7 1-year-olds.
yeah.
Right. I mean, I'm very impressed with how you two were able to grasp the plot. So
You know what kind of helped for me was that everyone in the Fantasy Mission Force had a very distinct look and
Yeah.
a costume that kind of like, okay, I know who I'm following in this action. I can recognize people. And we were all saying, like, one of the strengths of this movie is that the outfits of these guys would make for a great group costume.
Oh,
Totally.
100%. Fully.
Yeah.
So, yes, there's that too, but, like, the plot was hard to follow because I was trying to, I didn't even understand the script all that well because it was so choppy. And then the scenes were just so choppy. But other than that, you know what? Cinematic masterpiece.
Yeah.
Well, that begs the question, would you recommend this movie to other
Oh,
people?
I already have. I've sent it off to a couple people. Yeah.
Mid-screening, she was taping the YouTube screen as we were waiting.
Yeah.
She already sent it off to a bunch of people.
Yeah.
I know my friends who are a bit masochists, and they're gonna want to. I was like, hey, if you got an hour and a half to spare to put this on,
Yeah.
So you're
Yeah,
still
I'd recommend this
locked
movie. Maybe try and find a better version than the YouTube version we watched because I'm curious to see how this holds up on an actual physical disc. I did do like a little bit of peeking on IMDb. I know this movie because I just looked at like all the photos associated with it. I know this movie has a variety of covers from like the VHS releases and the
original Hong Kong.
DVD. This is a dollar store staple. Like in every Dollar Tree you walk into, you go to that bin. There is probably a version of either Fantasy Mission Force or the other one.
The other one,
the
Fire
one
Dragon
that
or
we
whatever.
mentioned,
Yeah.
Also, Fire Dragon, a little redundant. That's a nitpick, but I just want to say, yeah.
I want to see this exact version on a Megatron.
Oh, like a big
just
screen?
playing, and everyone wondering what's going on.
On a Megatron?
Yeah,
Or
Megatron's
what?
the bad guy from Transformers.
Oh, you know what I mean.
No, I
This
don't. I think
giant
you mean the Transformer, right?
No, I don't know. A giant
Like
IMAX.
An IMAX.
Yeah, there you
It's
go.
not called a Megatron?
I wish it was called the Megatron.
God
I don't
damn
think it is.
Curse
Yeah,
you,
okay.
Autobots!
Just after the show ended, Megatron.
I'll
Megatron
get
couldn't
you next
work
time.
Anywhere else, so it's just a movie screen. This is so demeaning. I used to rule Cybertron with an iron fist.
Not so fast, Decepticons. Autobots roll out.
And then Unicron is like one of those planetariums that you go inside.
Oh, lovely. Lovely.
No, I want this exact, like, stolen version from YouTube played on IMAX. Played on the Science World IMAX.
Yeah.
Just, like, lounge, just sit back in one of those lounge chairs.
Absolutely.
Oh man, but like when you get
It'll
to
feel grainy
when you
and
get
shit.
yeah, but when you get to the moment with the huge explosion, like half of your audience is gonna go blind.
I
From
know.
They
You'll
just
need
burn your
protective
retinas
glasses.
right through.
Just an epilepsy warning all over the place.
But yeah, I would say this is borderline a perfect movie.
We know
Sure.
Jameson's taste.
Sure, the fucking plot makes no goddamn sense, but hey, you got the evil Nazis, it's a war movie, there's Amazon babes,
Yeah, if
it's
you
a
don't-
haunted house sequence.
you don't
Occasionally Jackie Chan will just show up and beat somebody up.
This Jackie Chan movie.
It's like
a perfect date movie. If you can't decide
it's a perfect
between you
checkbox
and
movie.
Faye,
exactly. If you
what
don't,
are we going to watch? Do you want to see a horror film? Do you want to see an action, a wartime film,
Yes.
a historical film
Yeah.
about World
Yes
War
to
II
all.
and World War One? You
of the
want
above.
this?
Where
shit.
am I gonna find a movie that fills all these needs?
And then
Jackie
camp
Chan-
down
He-
right
he-
now.
he kicks down your wall and says, "Hey!"
And then he beats me up and
Oh
Then
God.
he grabs his chicken and he leaves.
yeah. Well, Hannah, thank you so much for being on our
Thanks for
show.
having me.
Do you have anything that you'd like to plug or promote?
Well, I have my own podcast called
Mm-hmm.
Keeping It Straight with Georgia, where we discuss the various arts and communities between Victoria and Vancouver. The world's been on fire for the last 2 months, so it's been kind of, basically, I'm just been doing my little social justice warrior part and uplifting BIPOC voices, but I do have more episodes coming out of that soon. You can find us on Spotify and iTunes, and also on Instagram, Keeping It Georgia. And I am a musician based in Vancouver, and it's Hannah Rose.
Cool.
That's
Awesome.
me. Don't find me on Facebook. That's true. You won't.
Have you watched or listened to or absorbed some media in the past few months that you really love and you recommend other people check out?
Media, as in
TV shows, movies,
books, podcasts.
Media.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Stuff that you
fair.
recommend.
Despite being a bit of an anti-monarchist, I've been really enjoying the third season of The Crown.
I enjoy The Crown.
I do. It's not so much like the glorifying of
But you
the
have to
royal
understand
family.
the monarchy if you want to topple the monarchy.
Thank you. Yeah, exactly. It's more of like the history that was taking place in that country, which how they would have responded.
Yeah.
For lack of better
The thing I really like about that show is how removed from humanity the royals have to become to maintain majesty. Whatever.
The artifice.
I
don't know. Yeah.
They have to essentially remove all, like, it's the woman who is like in the prime of her life gets swept into like the big responsibility of, duty first. Like, you have to just abandon all aspects of your wants and ambitions and personality, because now you're a figurehead and you're a symbol to people, and it's I don't know, it's a compelling drama.
It is, and by third season, they don't shy away from how much of a dick Queen Elizabeth II is, like, straight up. Mm-hmm. And sadly, I, for some reason, do empathize with Charles. I'm like, ugh.
What I liked in the earlier seasons was they dropped hints that, like, Charles was a bit of a dullard.
Oh, yeah, 100%.
No one really liked Charles.
Fully. Other than that, and then I was riding that Tiger King train for a little bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think we all were, and then I think a lot of us are having that cold Tiger King shower now where it's like, why?
But I will say, though, I mean, I've had some, like, I have friends that are, like, very sensitive with that type of content, and I don't blame them. But they were talking about how, it had affected them in this way, and I was like, I get it, I do, but you have to understand where Eric, I forgot his last name, the documentarian who wrote it, where he's coming from. He was so astounded at the fact that someone would have a snow leopard in a back of a ghost van in the middle of the summer in fucking Florida that he's like, what type of person?
Yeah.
Who are these? That this is a good idea.
Who are these monsters?
And the scary answer to that question was so many people.
Many people thought it's perfectly fine to have a fucking pet tiger. And I'm like, this is what documentarians do.
Yes.
They call out the bullshit.
And not only that, like the cult of personality that surrounds all
100%.
these, like everyone involved in that. That lifestyle and that industry, like, they're all cults of personality.
Exactly.
It's frightening. And it's really frightening how a lot of people who watch that documentary walk away from, like, fuck Carol Baskins. Go whatever the hell that guy's name was. Like, they're on Tiger King's side.
Exotic.
Joe Exotic.
They're all
thank you.
terrible.
They're all awful people, but people are like, oh, he ran for governor. I would have voted for him. He'd be hilarious. Fucking no, the guy's a maniac.
Those are the same people that are going to vote for Kanye.
Yeah.
Don't vote for Kanye.
Don't do it.
All right, I got two quick little plugs that I want to get here. Well, one thing that I'm getting back into was it's a video game. Well, it's a PC game. Team Fortress 2 just had a...
I don't know why you said that. Everyone knows you're in the video game world. It's a video game. Don't get on your high horse, people. It's a video game over here.
Because some bastards don't consider video games to be art. That's why.
Well, they don't...
I consider them art.
If you're listening to it and you don't
I'm not
consider
a gamer.
video games art, get off! Anyway.
Yeah, anyways. So a mod team recently made TF2 Classic, which is just sort of a recreation of Team Fortress 2, which came out, I want to say, like 2008, 2009 or whatever.
Which is ironic, because wasn't Team Fortress a recreation of Half-Life?
I forget what the whole story was. It's some kind of mod that was put together.
Half-Life? What? Really?
It's the same developer, I think.
Valve,
it is.
Anyways, since that game was released, they've had like tons and tons of updates that have like really turned off a lot of people from it. It's kind of like a shell of its former self, and it's really to get back into.
Still on. I thought everyone had jumped onto the old Overwatch train.
It really is.
Yeah.
So kids, put down your Overwatches and your fork knives and get into TF2 Classic. which kind of is just like a recreation of like what it was in the vanilla release. It's a lot of fun, and my friends and I have had a great time just falling back in love with, just like the deathmatch style of that game. It's a great multiplayer experience. The other thing I wanted to plug was, I've brought this up before, my sister's improv show that she does over FaceTime and Instagram with her improv partners. I keep getting the name wrong because like the name of her group is called Paint Bucket. They're doing these podcast improv shows that are called Pod Buckets, but apparently the actual show is called Paint Skillet. So I'm gonna say this right now, Maddie, if you want me to keep promoting your show, you gotta settle on a name and help your idiot older brother remember what it is.
Okay, sir, are we? Can I plug one more thing?
Please, sure. That's what this is for.
Okay, my older brother, Aiden Snider, over in Victoria, he's now hosting to help with musicians over there as well as for himself. It's called Live from the Olds, and every other Friday he drives a local musician around the back of his Oldsmobile and they play music. So he's basically...
That sounds like a great... I love that.
Yeah, so Live from the Olds, find them on Facebook, or Aiden Snider Music on Instagram.
Wonderful.
That's like a music-based comedians in cars getting coffee, but with actual people.
Yes.
And not celebrities. I like that.
Exactly.
That sounds like a great...
It gives a little interview and they have
That's
a chance
wonderful.
to play their show.
That's great. I will check that out. That sounds delightful.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yes, I am still doing Alchemy Theater's Tales from the Lost Galaxy live sci-fi improv. I believe we've released the first couple of episodes as a podcast, and you can catch them every other Sunday live on Twitch. If you go to Alchemy Theater's Facebook page. I want to recommend a podcast that I've been listening to a lot this week that I think is really great. It's an ABC podcast called 10% Happier with Dan Harris, and it's a meditation podcast. And he brings in these meditation teachers and he interviews them, and a lot of the podcasts are about 11 or 12 minutes, and they're just meditation practices. And that's really helped me sort of center myself through this past month with all the things that are rolling around in my head. But in addition to that, they also have longer hour-long interview-type podcasts on a variety of subjects about how we can take world events and apply that to our meditation. And for the past month, it's all been squarely focused on the Black Lives Matter moment. And there are a couple of really fantastic episodes that are specifically on the subjects of white people talking to other white people about racism. And those episodes have been fantastic, and it's really clarified a lot of questions that I've had, and it's really helped me come to terms with a lot of the internalized shame and guilt that I'm feeling. So if you're feeling that, absolutely check out 10% Happier with Dan Harris. I think that's a great resource. And, just like a quick call to action, white people, talk to other white people about racism. That's what's important right now in this current situation. So I recommend that. And on a slightly funner note, watch City Hunter, which is another weird Jackie Chan movie. It turns into Street Fighter at one point. It's another cartoonish movie that gets weirdly violent in the middle of it. Yeah, but that's got musical numbers. That's great. That's just a laugh. That's a larf. It's a leg.
Check out a bunch of old Jackie Chan shit.
Watch a bunch of Jackie Chan.
Yeah,
shit. It's probably good.
He's amazing. Thanks again for being here, Hannah.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Yay.
All right, we'll catch you on the next one. You stay frosty, WD. He hates that. That's my catchphrase, and he hates it. I do it every time.
I do hate it.
Amazing.
It's great, right?
Don't encourage him. Don't encourage him. All right.
I totally forgot to mention the orgasmic groan that they make when they're first fighting at like that wrestling match. Hear that?
Oh, we'll find a use for it.
Well, because you've recorded that now, I'll pipe that in at the very end of the episode.